Hey everybody, it is Romania Black, and we're getting set up to watch episode 6 of Odd Taxi. And it's not quite the halfway point. We're not quite the halfway point, but things have been picking up. Eiji's getting in pretty deep with Shiho, and I'm not enthused about the routes that we're going with that. Meanwhile, Dobu is making some threats. Odokawa is like maintaining himself rather well. We learned last episode a little bit more about the manager and what he's wanting to do, about our we learned a little bit more about the two girls that are not Rui. We learned more about the black cat and the calico cat and how they're kind of not too happy about the position that they're in, playing second fiddle to the could-be Beyonce of the group. So, and we also found out that Amai won like 1 billion yen. So, with the numbers that Odokawa gave him. So, there's that. And Goriki believes that he's going to shut down the clinic because he does not want Shirakawa necessarily. He doesn't want to he's doing it mainly to protect himself, but also Odokawa's kind of mad about it because then what's Shirakawa going to do to pay off Dobu? And it's leading into this web of messed up things. So we're just going to see where it goes. But I've got some comments that I want to talk about before we dive in. One is from This one's from I Swallow Apple Seeds back in episode 2. I thought it was interesting. They said Odd Taxi, I guess we were talking about Blu-ray releases for Odd Taxi. It's like Odd Taxi is sort of the opposite when it comes to some series. The series was originally never supposed to have a Blu-ray release because of how little buzz it generated before release. It's mind-boggling to my millennial self to imagine movies not getting a DVD or Blu-ray release, because I grew up in the era of the VHS cassette tape where there were VHSs on everything. Like just the most garbage trash movie that you couldn't even find it on television. It would have a VHS. And then, like, the junk DVDs. So the fact that a series that's this good was originally not planned to have a Blu-ray is just, it's wild to me. So, I Swallow Apple Seeds then says, but with how successful the series became during airing, they decided to give the series a Blu-ray release. All in all, 4,000 to 6,000 Blu-rays were sold. That's not that many. That's not that many at all. I wonder how hard it is to get a Blu-ray of Odd Taxi. I might have to research that. I might have to research it. I find that if I really, really, really like a show, getting physical media of it feels rather important. So we'll see. There's very little difference from the original and Blu-ray versions animation-wise, since Odd Taxi is one of those rare shows where most, if not all, of the animation was more or less finished by the time episode 1 came about. I don't feel like it's a rare show, though. Maybe for this studio, but there are lots of anime. Look, it's mainly MAPPA and some other studios. I feel like there's a handful of studios that intentionally hold off on the quality until the Blu-ray, but I mean, I can name plenty of studios that don't do that, and it's just, I'm gonna get off my soapbox. But anyway, basically, Odd Taxi was kind of like Mob Psycho 100. They did the same thing. They completed the season and then released it, so it is what it is. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. So thank you, I Swallow Apple Seeds, for that information. Salieri for episode 3 says capoeira is popular in a lot of types of media. A lot of fighting games have a character that fights in this style. It's nice to see a character in an anime training it. Yeah, Shirakawa, I'm hoping that it's a style and it's a little tidbit from that episode that will go on to have significance later on in the series. We can only hope. We'll see. And then H Banana 7 had a really cool note about episode 3, saying plumes or feathers are often used to decorate a cap, which elevates the person's social status. And I immediately thought of Pirates of the Caribbean, where Jack Sparrow tells Barbossa, he's like, I'll get you the hat. A real big one with like a feather and all that. And that kind of sways him because the hat is the status symbol. So that immediately made me think of Pirates of the Caribbean. That's the immediate imagery that I get. I think that it's talking about Kakihana. I don't want to call him Eiji because of Ash and Eiji, which I totally get. I call him Eiji because it's easier for me to say than Kakihana, but I can understand why you wouldn't want to call him Eiji. He is using false feathers to impress a girl. Good analogy, good connection to the symbolism. Absolutely agree. They also said the Yakuza guy reminds me of a tapir. Yes, tapir. I was finally trying to remember. I think I said tapir in the episode, maybe in the discussion, but I wasn't sure if that was right or not. They're known as Baku or dream eaters. And I was like, when I thought of dream eater, I'm thinking of the Pokemon Hypno that has like a move that can use a move Dream Eater. Kind of looks like a tapir too, right? Drowsy and Hypno. I was like, oh wow, brain connecting. Pokemon actually makes you connect a lot of things together. Go Pokemon, good for you. Nintendo quit suing people. But anyway, my brothers had a whole discussion about Pow World and Nintendo with me the last week, so my mind is on that. But anyway, I also loathe people on the phone that are in public like that, but the misdirection was good. Yeah, I thought the misdirection with the Yakuza-looking tapir was brilliant. I loved it. So anyway, thank you all so much for the comments and the kind words. This season has been wild so far. After this, we'll kind of be near the halfway point, but we're not there yet. So Tanaka was following Odokawa around and finding where he lives. There's a lot of, last week was a stress-inducing episode. So let's follow it up with hopefully not as stressful an inducing episode, but who are we kidding? Who are we kidding? We know how this is going to go. Anyway, I hope you all enjoy, but we are going to start Odd Taxi episode 6. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and I'll see you all on the other side. This was a unsettling episode of Odd Taxi. This is an unsettling episode. I want to be honest with you all. I want to be honest. The whole thing about Odokawa, and I went back and watched the clip from episode 1 where he's sitting in the apartment talking to maybe the girl that's there, maybe no one, maybe a dead body. There's something very unsettling about Odokawa, and I want to like him. I want to like him and believe that he's a good person and that he's not done anything wrong, but there is something under the surface with his character that makes me question, like, is he a murderer? Did he kill the girl? Because I'm 90% sure he has not hurt this girl in any way. I'm almost convinced that she's not even there. He's just talking to a wall and that she's not there at all. Because in the OP, he reaches his hand out to the cat and the cat runs away. So she may not be there at all. He's just talking to the wall thinking that she is and she's not. We have established that Odokawa is not a reliable narrator, so to speak, and he's got some issues. But I don't know. There's like a 10% part of me that's like, is he a serial killer and has murdered her, and these people in the series do not know how dangerous he is? There's a little part of me that thinks that. And I know that's not rational, but there are little things in this episode that make me go, is he possibly a murderer? And we don't know. I don't think he is, though. I think that she's left and he's convinced himself she's still there, but I don't even know. This episode made me very uneasy about a lot of things. There's a lot of things happening in this episode that make me very nervous. And so we need to talk about that. So Odokawa, we're going to put him up here. Odokawa has teamed up. He has teamed up with Dobu, which is, my dog is like sitting against Whiteboard Coon. So Odokawa has teamed up with Dobu. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Nope. We're going to get into that. He also, and I guess I need to put it this way. We're going to put her here with Shirakawa. He's also distanced himself and teamed up. Which maybe Odokawa is planning something with all of this, and we'll talk about it as we get into it. But he's distanced himself from Shirakawa, which we're going to talk about that conversation. That adds a whole nother layer to this. Then over here, you have Eiji. Eiji is trying to possibly get a ring for Shio. Why you doing that, bud? That's not smart. And in the process, he's taken out a loan. So he's got involved possibly in these loan sharks who could adjacently be the same ones that got the loan to Shirakawa. If that's the case, they talked about exorbitant interest, and the interest for his loan last time was not great. I don't like where this is going. Eiji doesn't have a lot of money. These guys look shady as F. They seem like they could cause a problem down the road for Eiji. That doesn't seem good. So I don't know about that. Meanwhile, there's Shiho and there's the Black Cat, who are kind of second fiddles right now. Over here to Rui. And Rui, as it turns out, is at least kind of, I'm going to put her over here so y'all can see it better than me blocking it through half of this. But then you have them who are over here with Rui. And Rui is potentially with Baba, but we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Baba and all this. And then there is her manager. Her manager who's possibly working with Yano. We don't know exactly, but he's trying to get information from Odokawa. Then you have Amai, who's won the money and is also trying to like pay back Odokawa, which we'll talk about. He likes Rui, but doesn't know that she could be in this relation with Baba, because that could change a bunch of things. I don't know. And then we have the partner, who we're going to put over here. Meanwhile, we have Tanaka, who has a gun, has been spotted on TV, but was sensible enough in his manic anxiety to put a mask on. And the gunshots made me very nervous in this episode. The gunshots made me nervous. I didn't like that. I think this show will kill people, and I don't like that. But we need to just get into it. This web of all things. Meanwhile, over here we have the Taper, who is the boss of Dobu. And we also have our YouTube BooTube guy, which we're going to talk about him in a little bit as well. So this episode's called Let Me Hear You Say What the Hell? What the hell indeed. What the hell indeed. So we start out the episode with Amai meeting up with Odokawa. And Odokawa kind of remembers him, but he's like, don't you remember? I think it's funny that the manager's given him the mystery kiss poster, and Amai assumes that he had influence over Odokawa and got him to get into mystery kiss, which Odokawa just kind of rolls with it. He's like, whatever. But that's not actually what's happened, right? It's funny because it's like that in real life. Sometimes we don't realize the influence that we have on others, and sometimes we misplace thinking that we have influenced others when we really haven't. So I think it's a cool commentary on that. So he has to go to Shinjuku. And he's like, you practically saved my life. And he's like, well, I wouldn't go that far. And he's like, but you changed my life. You're like a god. Now, interestingly enough, Amai thinks that he owes Odokawa and thinks he's like a god. Odokawa is like, please don't call me that. I don't want to be referred to as that, please. That we don't need that connotation. We've seen where that goes in this series. But instead, he's like, did you get hooked on Mystery Kiss? He's like, I guess. I think he's more hooked on the mystery surrounding Mystery Kiss than the actual band itself. And he's like, oh, I knew you would. And he's like, I won the lottery. You haven't heard how much I won. I won 1 billion yen. Now, Amai just put 1,000 red flags on himself. And I'm like, Amai, what are you doing, sweetheart? Like, first of all, I figured he got the winning ticket. He put the winning ticket online. Why wouldn't you have cashed that already and put it in a bank account or somewhere where it's not out in the open and people can take it from you? Like, anybody can walk up and take your winning lottery ticket. Now, granted, he's given himself like a little bit of insurance because since he put the ticket with the winning numbers online, there is a traceable receipt that it was him who won it. So if something happened to Amai, which I'm worried is going to happen, and someone stole his lottery ticket, which I'm worried is going to happen, if they showed up to claim the winnings, someone online could be like, oh, but hey, this was Amai's. And then if they find out Amai dies or something, they'll trace it back to the guy with the lottery ticket or girl, and then be like, well, you took that lottery ticket from a dead person, so you probably killed them. And it would all come back on them. So That could happen. But I'm like, I would never. First of all, if I won the lottery, I think in the state that I live in, you have to disclose that you won, which is, I don't know. Money makes people do weird things. Tanaka's a case in point about that. Tanaka's a case in point. Money makes you do crazy things. I mean, Tanaka, Dobu, Shirakawa, they are all examples of money affecting their actions and what they do and potentially their fates. And I'm like, Amai, who's this harmless little being who just wants money to buy Mystery Kiss CDs, winning the equivalency of like nearly $700,000. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody tried to kill him for it. And I'm like, and all of this was captured on the mystery cam, or the mystery cam, the Mystery Kiss cam on the data cam that Odokawa has. So if the manager finds out, what if Yano gets a hold of that data and he tries to hunt down Amai? Because Amai is like the most innocent, gullible being. I don't know. We're going to talk about Amai later on in this with Rui, but I just got all these red flags of why are you telling people about this? And even Odokawa is like, I wouldn't go around flaunting and telling everybody that you won. He's like, I've checked it 100 times. He's like, you shouldn't be spreading that around. He's like, well, I had to tell you. I told people online, but that's online. I'm like, that's almost worse. And it's been liked 14,000 times, right? And shared, I think it was shared 10 times, but still. Yeah, I don't know. This is too big for me to keep to myself. I had to tell someone. He's like, well, now you can buy Mystery Kiss CDs, so get out of my taxi. He's like, I've been keeping my winning ticket on me so I can claim my winnings right when their CD comes out. Now that's just dumbass. No, don't do that. Go and cash it, put it in a bank account, and then when the CD comes out, draw out the money to get the CD. Why are you doing that? Does the lottery ticket have an expiration date? Is there a limit to, if nobody picks up the lottery within a week or so, do they just forego or forfeit the winnings? I want to know. Japanese lottery pickup limit. Let me see. The Japanese lotto. I want to know. Stay here. I want to know, there's a lotto 6. Okay. And a lotto 7. And there's a mini lotto. I want to know. Okay, I have to type it. How long do people who win the Japanese lottery have to pick up winnings? Out of curiosity. Okay. It says the procedures it says on the official site, it says the procedures to taking your winnings take about 1 week. Okay, it says for winnings of 500,000 yen per drawing or greater, a photo ID will be required. And for winnings over 1 million yen, a photo ID and a registered seal will be required. If no registered seal is available, a signature is acceptable. In case winnings over 1 million yen, the lottery ticket will be temporarily held at the Mizuho Bank. In such cases, the procedures for winnings will take about 1 week. The winning ticket must be presented within the payment period for the winnings. The payment period is 1 year from the start of payments. For scratch tickets, it's the payment period displayed on the ticket. Oh, okay. So you actually have quite a bit of time to claim your winnings. Okay. Then I stand corrected. I'm used to being like, oh, it's going to expire within so much time. But no, he actually has quite a lot of time before he picks it up. But you have to have the ticket. And I'm like, if you don't have the ticket, that's going to be a problem. So he wants to thank him and offer him something in return. And Odokawa is like, I don't want to be involved. I think Odokawa sees the writing on the wall and he's like, you in danger, son. I'm not going to get involved in that. But then Amai says, well, maybe I can do it for a family member or something, or somebody that you care for that's in trouble. Now, Odokawa does not know about Eiji and the potential trouble that he's going to be in with these loan sharks, but he thinks of Shirakawa. But I think that Odokawa's like, no, that's not my business. I want to help her, but that's not my business. He says no. Like, he clearly is thinking of her, but he doesn't want to get involved in whatever she's involved in, which is smart. He gets involved anyway later on, but I'm like, He's like, do you just not feel desire? I think Odokawa does. He just doesn't outwardly display it, right? So he asks if he's free, and I like that Odokawa is like, I'm in the middle of work. I love any time a character says, as you can see. It's one of my favorite introductory phrases, like, as you can see. I think of Natsume's Book of Friends. As you can see, we're traveling rabbits. Whatever, go watch Natsume's Book of Friends. He's like, I'll pay you whatever you make today. Now, he takes him to the White Dolphin Cabaret Club. He's like, you get free service for life. I'm going to be real with you all. This place, I would be like Odokawa. I would want as far away from this place as possible. It was the hallmark of everything that is like a no for me. Loud, blaring music, like just overcrowded with people I don't know. And I'd be like, no. So I like that Odokawa was like, I'm on the clock. I'm driving. I can't drink. So and I don't think he drinks alcohol anyway because he only has tea in his vehicle. So I'm sure he's like, no, you ladies can drink. I'm going to get out of here. And he's like, well, just enjoy yourself a little bit more. So meanwhile, while Amai is trying to keep Odokawa at the Cabaret Club to treat him, we see Eiji looking for engagement rings. Eiji is just, I think it was best said in the comments for episode 3. It was basically saying, I like Eiji as a character, but if I saw him in real life, I'd want to stay so far away. I'm like, you barely know this girl. This girl. Like, not a full-grown woman. She's barely 18. She's 17. Was she 17 years old? Barely 18. She's wanting to get married because she's got this youthful mindset, but you're 41, you should know better. And instead of telling her, hey, I actually would like to get to know you more and get to know you better first, and for us to be like in a committed relationship for a while before even thinking about marriage, he's looking at engagement rings. But of course, he doesn't have the money to get them. And he can't buy a cheap engagement ring because then it'll like let on that he's not actually wealthy. And he's like, uh-oh. So anyway, while Odokawa's in the bathroom, he checks his phone. And basically every 10 minutes to 20 minutes to an hour, he's missed a call from Shirakawa. And then after missing several of her calls, he says, don't get involved with me again. Like an hour after her last call, that's what he said to her. And I appreciate that Odokawa is trying to cut her off and distance himself from her because he knows that things have gotten sketchy with Dobu. He doesn't want her to get hurt, but also he knows that the stuff Gariki's involved in, he's kind of somewhat involved in, and he doesn't want to get tangled up with her. And so I respect Odokawa just being like, hey, we need to distance. And I feel like on the one hand, I could hear her argument that she wants to know why, but then on the other hand, girl, you should kind of know why. All right? You should know why he's not wanting to involve you because of what's going on. So then there's a gunshot. I am as shocked as Odokawa is. And there's Tanaka. Now, thank God, Tanaka, who looks absolutely ragged and looks like he hasn't bathed in weeks, because he probably hasn't. Tanaka firing the gun in the air, then at a person. Thank God. Thank God. We don't need any of that. But he fires the gun in the air, trying to like root out Odokawa. And he knows what Odokawa looks like. And he's like, I don't know. Someone came in with a gun. And he's like, you're going to go out through the back door. It's hidden in the front of the house. Okay. So he looks around trying to see somebody. But then I feel like he saw Odokawa leave. And that's when Tanaka is stopped by one of the Homo sapiens. He's like, what is this? Is this for Halloween? It's not Halloween yet. So it's getting close to Halloween. So it's in the fall. So we have the one Homo sapien. I find it interesting that he's developed this kind of relationship with Tanaka, which is kind of wild. Because Tanaka, he fires the gun above his head, to scare him. But he doesn't directly attack him and he seems to listen to him. So now that I feel like the one partner is slowly seeing the divide between him and Baba, I wonder if he's going to maybe end up like talking with Tanaka or getting to know him more. Tanaka's highly unstable, so I don't know how that's going to work, but it's fascinating. He's like, don't you think you're being hasty? I've heard people riot every year, but this is the first time I've seen a one-man riot. So Odokawa slips out. Here's another gunshot. But he's like, I like that he thinks about it for a moment. And Odokawa's like, do I go back and see if they need help? Or he's probably like, I have no way to do anything if I go back in there. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go to my car. So I don't know if I would do differently than him in that moment. Yeah, Shibagaki is his name. So Shibagaki is the other Homo sapien who Amai, he happens to work at the same cabaret club as Amai, which doesn't surprise me. He's like, I thought it would be funny if I got shot. And he's like, really? He's like, you're crazy. I think that speaks a little bit to Shibagaki's mental state, which he could end up working with Tanaka. Who knows? But someone tried to bust into Odokawa's car. They didn't take anything, but they tried to bust in the back window. So when he shows up, there is Shirakawa. And she knows where his house is. So did he give her his address, or did she just find it and look it up? How'd she figure out where he lives? Have they been there together before? Mysteries. So he doesn't want her to go inside the house. Now, it might seem suspicious why he doesn't want her to go in the house in case that black cat is there inside. But also, I looked back in episode 1, and the inside of his house is kind of dingy. It's kind of run down. He's not really taking good care of it. So if he likes her, he probably doesn't want her to go inside and see that it's not well taken care of or that it's not maintained. So he's like, actually, I don't want you in here. Or he knows that if he lets her inside, there's a chance that he could be tempted or he could be compromised. So he's like, no, I don't want to let you inside. You can talk to me outside. And she's like, she yells that he's ignoring her. And he tells her to stop, and she's like, we can talk outside. Now, here's the deal. We cut to the inside of the apartment where there's the door, cut, barely open. So whoever's inside, they moved to the park so that whoever's inside couldn't hear that conversation. But they know that Odokawa was talking to Shirakawa, whoever's inside. The fact that the person inside the closet is not speaking or giving us any indication that they're alive is creepy to me. It gives me the slightest doubt in my mind where I'm like, is Odokawa actually a serial killer and we don't even know it yet? Who knows? But anyway, he takes her to the park to talk. And he's like, well, they didn't take anything. And she's like, well, you better get fixed soon or else. And he's like, what are you getting at? And then she says, leaving something broken makes people break it further. So it's the broken windows theory. The broken windows theory, according to the wiki. In criminology, the broken windows theory states that visible signs of crime, antisocial behavior, and civil disorder create an urban environment that encourages further crime and disorder, including serious crimes. The theory suggests that policing methods that target minor crimes, such as vandalism, loitering, public drinking, and fare evasion, help to create an atmosphere of order and lawfulness. The theory was introduced in a 1982 article by conservative think tank social scientists James Q. Wilson and George L. Kelling. It was popularized in the 1990s by New York City Police Commissioner William Bratton, whose policing policies were influenced by the theory. The theory became subject to debate both within social sciences and public spheres. Broken windows policing has been enforced with controversial police practices, such as the high use of stop and frisk in New York City in the decade up to 2013. So I can see where that could be debated. It makes me think of the Foot Clan headquarters in the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie, where the MC Hammer song plays, and there's the girl with the bubble gum and everybody thirsts over. And then there's the guy that's like, you want regular or menthol? And he's got the cigarettes, and everybody's just graffitiing the place and stealing stuff and gambling. So I guess that would kind of go with the broken windows theory. But I don't know. That's hard to say, because on the one hand, I kind of can see it, but on the other hand, I've seen some really nice places broken into before. So I don't know if that's entirely true. I don't know. But in any case, she's like, yeah, the broken windows theory. It applies to hearts as well. Suggesting that if a heart is broken, it is open to even more damage from others. And he's like, well, what do you mean? So she asks him, he's like, what do you want? And she said, you told me not to get involved with you. And he's like, yeah, I did tell you that. The way you think that depending on what I do, you might be able to salvage. Okay, how does he phrase that? Because he phrases it in a way, he's like, the way you think that depending on what I do, you might be able to salvage this situation is obnoxious. So Odokawa, I think, kind of has figured out that she's been with Dobu and he's kind of frustrated by it. And I get why he's frustrated by it, because she wasn't honest with him and she wasn't open with him. And he kind of feels played. And so I understand where he's coming from. And so she says, he's like, I was really happy. And he's like, I'm ashamed of myself. And then she immediately starts to get teary-eyed. And I don't blame Odokawa for saying, don't use your feminine wiles on me, coward. Because, I mean, like, she's a girl that knows, like, martial arts and stuff. Like, she immediately gets teary. And I'm glad Odokawa is like, no. Although, that being said, I think it does kind of work on him because he agrees to help Dobu in the end. So he tells her, don't be getting all teary-eyed and starting the waterworks. There's no crying and taxi driving. And so she's like, well, I'll tell you everything. And he kind of already thinks that my dogs, knows. He's like, you don't have to tell me what you know. And then she says, Dobu and I used to date. And I was like, well, I didn't expect that. So she used to date Dobu. But not just date him, for 4 years. 4 years is a long ass time to date somebody and to be paying off a debt. And so he's like, well, I didn't know that. And she's like, I couldn't say no to him because of the money. And he's like, it's none of my business. And she says, I borrowed a large amount of money from him. And so I was paying him back little by little while dating. And then she kind of is sad about taking the medication. Like, it was, in her words, her only option. My dogs are going to bark at my feet. If I was Odokawa, I would, be upset by this because it feels like a slap to the face. Like, on one hand, Odokawa kind of feels lied to by Dobu because Dobu's like, oh, she came to you of her own accord. Well, according to her story, at first she didn't come to him of her own accord. Dobu told her to. So that means that Dobu also lied to Odokawa, as well as Shirakawa. And so Odokawa is kind of upset about that. And he has every right to be. It's understandable why he'd be upset with her because she essentially lied. And he's like, I don't know if I can trust you because you've been working with him for 4 years. You came to me because he told you to get intel on me, and you basically set me up to be this cab driver for him as a getaway car when he robs a bank. He's like, I'm kind of pissed about that, and I don't blame him, right? So she says she's going to tell the police, and Odokawa's like, well, don't do that because Goriki's already got it in motion. If you tell the police now, it's going to throw everything off and throw Goriki under the bus, so don't do that. You should let him handle it instead of doing something that you shouldn't. And he's like, why did you approach me? And she says, Dobu told me to bring him the patient list. He must have had plenty of methods for turning personal information into profit. And when he saw your name, he asked what you were like. And I told him a grumpy cab driver. And Odokawa was like, cool. Glad that I've been reduced to the grumpy cab driver. But then Dobu tells him to get close to you because he needs a getaway car. He's going to rob a bank and he needs a taxi as his getaway car. He must think that I'm a sucker. I approached you because he told me to, but partway through I had no intention of turning you over to him. But I'm like, girl, at that point, like, it wouldn't have mattered if you didn't want to turn him over. Like, he already has met. I get why Odokawa's mad because not only did she sell out his personal information, which he's been on medication and who knows what he doesn't want people to know about, right? So not only is she selling his personal information out under him, which he's probably like, what the hell? But two, she described him as a grumpy cab driver. And then she knew that Dobu was going to plan to use him as a getaway car. Never said a word about this until it was brought up now. And then she also, has basically been manipulating him in a way. Even if she says that it went from manipulation to real feelings, like, how can he trust her? How can he trust her? And so and also Odokawa's like, because of you, I was held at gunpoint in my own car by this guy. So yeah, I don't blame Odokawa for being mad. And I hate that because I like Shirakawa's character, but girl, you done goofed. You done goofed real hard. And he's like, got it. And she's like, well, what are you going to do? And he's like, well, I'm going to leave him be. Maybe I'll even pretend to help him rob a bank. So that leads us to where we are now, the pretending, quote unquote, to help rob a bank, which he said is to eliminate Shirakawa's debt. So I feel like even though he's pissed at her about all of this, he does like her, even though he's mad at what's happened in this situation, and he does want to help her. So I feel like at this point he was trying to be like, what am I going to do? And I think him deciding to help Dobu to eliminate her debt is like a way to clean the slate, right, between the two of them. And so from there, she's like, well, okay. Like, she doesn't really tell him not to help Dobu, which is hilarious. He's like, how much do you still owe? And she's like, $3 million. And he's like, well, what the hell? Because of the interest, the principal never went down. He's like, you should have borrowed money from somebody else. And she's like, oh, well, he'd beat me. You even became an accomplice to his crimes. He's actually a weak man. I couldn't just leave him. And so Odokawa then realizes that even though he likes this girl, even though he's willing to help her get out of her debt so that she can better herself, she's also kind of codependent and has a little bit of toxicity there, because he's like, you just talked about how he beat you and is a terrible person, but you couldn't leave him alone. I feel like the furrowed brow Odokawa has is like me going, maybe you're not the right person to be with, girl. And then he's like, I don't care about your codependent relationship. And she tries to say that, it started out being told what to do, but she's like, I want to pay off my debt and leave Dobu, really. And she's like, I'll apologize to Dr. Gariki. And then she says it's because she loves him. Now, does she actually love him? Maybe. The big test of if she actually loves him or not is going to be if he helps get her debt removed and says, okay, you're free now. What are you going to do? If she doesn't stay with Odokawa, then that's the sign. I don't know. I want to believe that Shirakawa is a good person and does love Odokawa and wants to be with him. But she brought up a lot of red flags in this conversation of things she hadn't said, things she hadn't talked about, even though she knows he's had contact with Dobu, that I'm like, maybe she didn't know he had contact with Dobu. Maybe she didn't realize, but she does. So yeah. So Odokawa goes back home and sleeps in the floor, which, dude. But is the door open in a different direction this time? I can't see if it is or not. It feels like maybe it's open a different direction. I don't know. I do like the middle card with Shibagaki and Amai cleaning up the mess. So next day he takes the taxi to the shop to get the window fixed. And they're like, I saw an online news story about it. And so we hear Shibagaki saying, it was shocking. I had a gun pointed at me. The police interviewed me afterwards as well. So Shibagaki of Homo Sapiens encounters armed robber at part-time job. And he's like, why didn't they interview me properly? I'm the one who chased off the robber. And Bob is like, well, really? How did you do it? And he's like, well, I told him to shoot me if he could. And in defense to my manliness, he said, in deference to my manliness, he settled down. He's like, could you be more specific? What exactly was the situation? So they're going over and recounting the events. Meanwhile, we see Taco Loans, which is an octopus, which it's got its little suckers on everything. And we see another red flag, which is this loan being taken out by freaking Eiji. I'm like, has Eiji not paid off his loan previously? Because now he's taking a loan for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's $1,000,000 yen. He's taking out a loan for $1,000,000 yen. That does not seem good. Like, Eiji, don't take out 1,000,000 yen loan to get the ring. That's not going to go good for you, sir. It's not going to end up good in your favor. So I wanted to catch a little bit of this conversation that's happening while we're watching Eiji get this thing. He says, you're always the one who says we should throw ourselves into trouble for the sake of interesting stories. If you can't talk about it, what's the point? So Baba is getting on to Shibagaki for not telling the full story about the robber in air quotes. But I think the reality is that Shiba doesn't really have much of a story. I mean, he does have a story in that he tried to stop Tanaka from firing the gun, but I think it only goes up to a certain point. And he's like, what's the point? What have you been up to this past week? And he's like, oh, I've been shooting my drama. I think some details on it have been released by now. Plus my regular TV appearances, so I haven't slept much. Young guys who have just tasted success always brag about it. I do feel that Shiba is a little bit jealous of Baba. That Shiba is jealous of Baba's success. And Baba is young and he's charismatic. And I feel like he has the face of an entertainer, whereas Shiba is not so much. So I feel like that's why they're taking advantage of Baba. Baba not only is kind of simple, but he has a good, aesthetically pleasing face for a horse, I assume. And so we're going to talk about that actually in a second. But I feel like Baba's kind of being taken advantage of, right? Also, I don't like this crocodile and this wolf looking at Eiji. Don't like that at all. I've been thinking of that comedy. I've been thinking lately that comedy that doesn't hurt anyone is best. I like this discussion of like sanitized, toned down comedy. I really like this comment because what Baba is proposing is he wants comedy that is like, that doesn't hurt anyone. So comedy that does not hurt. So no shade. We're just some good, clean, family fun comedy, which, doesn't have any bite to it, right? And so he's like, no way. It's okay to hurt one person to make 10 people laugh. That's a very different take. So I think it's interesting that Shiba kind of has this like shade view towards comedy where like you can make fun of someone and make others laugh because of it, and that's okay. Which I feel like that varies to a degree. Like, in what way are you hurting them with the joke? And is the joke a joke or is it just being mean? There's a fine line there. And he's like, well, it makes people dislike you. Here's the thing. The big discussion here is that Baba wants to be liked. So Baba wants to be liked. But, I mean, comedy is so varied and so subjective that it's really hard because something that you find funny, somebody else might not find funny. However, I do think that comedy should not be censored, and to a degree. Like I said, if it's not hurting anybody, on a deep personal level, you can throw shade at somebody and be like, oh my God, them shoes, and that's different than targeting something that's really, really deeply tied to their core identity, right? He said, it just makes people dislike you. Look at those guys who are successful these days. They're all amiable. And he's like, do you think that makes people laugh? Really laugh. So there is this kind of like sanitized, politically correct comedy that Baba seems to be wanting to go towards. And then there's kind of like, I feel it's more the, what am I trying to say? Like Spaceballs, producers, what's his name? Who does Spaceballs and Blazing Saddles? Spaceballs, Blazing Saddles. His name is on the tip of my tongue, and I want to know, Mel Brooks. Thank you, Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks is something I think of. So, for example, like Blazing Saddles is actually a harsh critique of racism in Westerns. And Mel Brooks created that movie he uses a lot of slang and terminology that's very derogatory, but it's done in a way that's making fun of the people who are racist and making fun of the people who are the ones that spread this type of hatred and prejudice. The problem is you gotta be smart enough to get the jokes, and it requires some critical thinking. And unfortunately, if you just tell sanitized, politically correct jokes, that doesn't require a lot of critical thinking. And that's, I watched an edited, like, tone, politically correct, edited version of Blazing Saddles, and just the jokes were all gone. And it's like, ugh. But anyway, he's like, I mean, really laugh. Get off my soapbox. When we were kids, we laughed until the very core of our bodies were numb at the words prickling with sharp edges. And so Baba kind of talks about how times have changed. And it is. I mean, stuff that and to be fair, it's a double-edged sword, because there's such a thing as things progressing in a very good way. And then there are things that, there's things that are lost along the way, right? Jokes that my friends and I told in 2007, some of those I'm like, oh, we can't tell that joke now. That's not appropriate. And it's for a good reason that it's not appropriate, right? Because we've learned as a society about people as we go, right? But at the same time, your comedy still needs to have a bite and an edge, because in a lot of ways, comedy is a form of social protest. It is a way of activism. It is a way of freedom of speech. And to take that away cuts into the core of who we are as a society, because we are freedoms. So I'm not going to go into a soapbox about that, but I get where Shiba's coming from. He's like, times have changed. He's like, what then? You think making weird faces is funny? Do you think rolling your eyes is funny? Do you think that makes people laugh? There are 3 levels of comedy that we learned in school, and it goes like, there's the highbrow comedy. So there is like satire is the highbrow comedy, where it's satire. And that seems to be more what Shibagaki likes, is the biting satire that makes commentary about societal aspects and about politics and things like that, and kind of really ribs in and cuts into our everyday lives in that way. Then there's parody, and parody is a little bit lower down the ladder from satire. It's still making a commentary, but it's more like making fun of. It's more in a generalized way, making fun of something. And then there's farce. And farce is just skibbity toilet. Farce is just surface level, potty humor, bare bones. Like, we didn't have to think a lot to make that funny. And it's just kind of like slapstick is farce. It's just slapstick. It's like you scrape the bare edge of the iceberg for the comedy bones, right? And there's nothing wrong with farce. Some people like farce, and there's nothing wrong with it. But to say that it's the only type of comedy you need, I think is missing the bar. And I think that's what Shibagaki is kind of like, offended that would be suggested. And he's like, well, since he's gotten overexcited, let's move on to the fan mail. He's like, this one's from Radio Name. When I've asked, most people who respond with Osaka are actually from Amagasaki. And he's like, I know what you mean. It's in the Hyogo prefecture, but the area code is 6. He's like, what about that one guy? The smart-ass high school student who always sends us mail. And Bob was like, oh, Satoshi, we don't have anything from him today. And you could tell that Shibagaki is kind of sad about that. I wonder if Shibagaki is kind of thinking that because Baba's getting more notoriety and the show is kind of veering towards more him and what he's doing, if Shibagaki's like, are we losing our core audience because we're slowly transitioning to something that wasn't us from the start? I feel he's a little disillusioned by that, and I hate to see that, because he's kind of like, oh. So anyway, from there, we have Eiji, who's the only one eating at the restaurant, asking where Odokawa is. Or the bartender, asks where Odokawa is. And he's like, he'd finish up work early and come if he was feeling like it. Now, she talks about Kakihana and saying that he's changed. And he's like, really? So when they leave, all these girls are there to see Baba. Because Baba is the handsome young one of the two who has all the promise as, a celebrity. And they just crowd around him and not Shiba. And then as Shiba is getting into the cab, this giraffe, who turns out to be Satoshi, stops him. Now, granted, Satoshi should have just let off with, I'm Satoshi, the guy that wrote you letters. He should have just let off with that, because honestly, if I was in Shibagaki's position and a guy with bloodshot eyes who doesn't look too unlike Tanaka held open the cab door, I'd be like, let's not talk right now. I wouldn't have been as blunt as Shibagaki, but I would have been a little bit concerned. And he's like, I know exactly what you mean. And he says, what's so funny about rolling your eyes? And he's like, your understanding doesn't mean shit to me. Shibagaki's just mad. Shibagaki's just not in a mood. He's just kind of over it. And the sad part is he's so just over it and upset that he doesn't realize that it's Satoshi. It's so sad. Anyway, we'll see where that goes. Then we go to Kabasawa. Oh, Kabasawa. Where are we going to do with him? We're going to put Kabasawa right here. So Kabasawa concerns me a lot because he says, video of shooting at Shinjuku Cabaret Club acquired. And he's like, Dobu, shocking. And he's like, Taichi Kabasawa here. Like, he's got candles lit for this freaky ass shrine. Like, he concerns me a lot. He's like, there was a shooting at the Cabaret Club in Shinjuku. It was on the news, but would you believe it? A listener who happened to be there sent me a video. Now, who was the person getting the video? It probably wasn't Shiba. It probably wasn't Amai. So it was somebody there that ran off that was there at the Cabaret Club. Yeah. He's like, this must be Dobu. I'm like, okay, what I was going to talk about with the horse face, because Rui makes the comment later on. She's like, oh, you've got a horse face, which again leads to he has a long face, right? One thing I was like, why would they think he's Dobu? Because he looks like a cat. He has a cat tail, not a monkey tail. And if you knew Dobu in the series, Dobu has like a big floofy tail and not a thin tail. But that lends to my theory that these are not actually animals. This is all from the POV of Odokawa. They're actually all human. And if they're all human, then yeah, Dobu and Tanaka could look quite similar if they're about the same height. You can't rule that out. So, interesting. He's like, it must be Dobu. More and more, get this right. More and more of Dobu's vile acts are being exposed to the light of day. I don't feel bad for Dobu. Don't get me wrong. Dobu is a criminal and he's doing petty criminal acts and wants to rob a bank. I don't feel bad for Dobu. I do feel bad for the fact that Dobu's getting blamed for a lot of shit that he didn't do, but it is his gun, so he's like, what makes me really happy is that they could have made a fortune selling this video to the media. I'm like, people could have died in this nightclub. People could have died in this cabaret. They could have been shot and died. And Kabasawa is more concerned about the fact that the video could have been sold to someone else for money and then it was sent to him for free instead. The lack of, the out of touchness, right? He's like, I'm sure it's Dobu. I'm sure it's because they despise Dobu that much. Like, it's all misdirected, and it's so crazy. But I believe Taichi Kabasawa's unifying force has grown that strong, that this is a blessing. Like, this man is like Joella levels of drag delusion. He is literally the Joella of Odd Taxi. He is so delusional that he thinks people are sending him things because he's a cult leader now. Oh my God. He says, this is a blessing. Proof that I've grown closer to becoming a god. Oh my God, the delusion is so real. Then he goes to this wall. This wall alone would be a bit concerning to me. If I were Dobu, I'd be a bit concerned. Not just because of the one poster of him with knives and ninja stars thrown through it, but, you know, the second poster with the knife thrown through it, the voodoo doll with a nail on the wall, the third poster with the face scribbled out, the blood-like red letters that say divine judgment, and 8 candles. I'd be concerned. I'd be like, this kid's gone off the deep end. And he's like, I have 1 million followers. I am a god. The hubris, y'all. The hubris. Honestly, Tanaka and Kabasawa and Tanaka worry me the most. More than Dobu. More than anybody else. Those two worry me the most because they're delusional and could do some damage in their delusional state. At least Dobu is like, the fudge? At least Dobu's like, why am I getting blamed for this? I didn't do anything yet. I ain't even robbed my bank. And they're like, are you prepared to pay for your crimes? He's like, I feel like I'm being blamed for all the crimes in the world. Everyone looks like an enemy to me now. Which is a pretty desperate place for him to be in. He's like, the gun this guy used was definitely mine. That's what's so bad about it. And then Odokawa's like, well, was it Yano? He's like, no, I don't think it's Yano. It would have been more purposeful. This guy just seemed like he was looking for someone. He's like, well, you were in the bathroom when this happened, right? And then Odokawa's like, are you saying somebody has a grudge against me? The thing about it is, I don't think Odokawa has no reason or way to know that it's Tanaka and that Tanaka's after him. Like, that's the thing that's kind of scary, is Odokawa's like, I don't think anybody has a grudge against me. Why would they? He doesn't even know. And Dobu's like, well, then what are we going to do with this? He's like, you probably have horrendous luck then. He's like, nothing was stolen, and that includes my dash cam data. And he's like, that's my point. If they're looking for a purpose, someone's trying to torture you to death. Which, again, Dobu is not a reliable narrator, so he can't really believe anything that he says. And he's like, I'm surprised you're so calm about this. It's like you're not afraid to die. And he's like, I'm scared. Of course I'm scared. Again, I don't know how to read Odokawa. I love him as a main character. He's so much fun in this story, and he's so cool under pressure. But part of me is like, has he killed someone already? I don't know. I'm a little bit worried by what Odokawa might end up doing by the end of the series. So he's like, well, why didn't we join forces? I like that everything's framed in red. It's like a deal with the devil. It's framed with red in this moment. He's like, this Halloween guy is trying to kill you, so I need to get the gun back. And he's like, on an unrelated note regarding Mystery Kiss, if Yano's involved, then I can't touch it. I want you to help me gather information. And he's like, I'm not asking you to do it for free. I'll make sure Gariki can return to his clinic. So will you help? He's like, you and I were destined to become allies. And Odokawa's like, I'll do it if you release Shirakawa and write off her debt. And Dobu's kind of like, well, I don't want to do that, but if this is the only way to get you to help me, sure, fine, I'll do it. They shake on it, but I'm like, can you really trust Dobu? I don't know. And so Dobu says he's going to look for Tanaka, which, have fun with that. Meanwhile, he sends Odokawa to go find Kabasawa, which, I mean, I could totally see Kabasawa getting in the taxi with Odokawa, because that's what started his notoriety. So I could see him wanting to touch base or have a reunion photo with him. But it's a slippery slope, y'all. If this kid's gotten way delusional, and if he sees that Odokawa is tied to Dobu in any way, then everybody's getting tied together. What if Kabasawa ends up joining forces with Tanaka? What if Shibagaki ends up joining forces with Tanaka because he's pissed off about all this? It's just like a damn web, a spider web wrapped around a powder keg, and it's terrifying. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. So yeah. He's like, then Dobu says that he's gonna, on Halloween, go dressed up as the man with the gun. I'm like, why would you do that? That sounds like a terrible idea. Did you not just hear this kid on this video say that he wants vigilante justice, and now there's a video of what this guy looks like? He's like, I'm gonna walk around town. And then he says, well, since everyone knows your face, you can't walk around town on any other day. He's like, he might go out wearing the same outfit. Either way, I'll expect I'll run into him some way or another. He's the self-aggrandizing type. What does aggrandizing mean? I'm learning new words today. Oh, increase the wealth or status of. Yeah, that's probably true. Okay. And so, again, Odokawa's like, I'll go to his university and pick him up. What's interesting is Odokawa reveals that he has a very good sense for catching people and remembering what they look like, which is interesting. So that's cool. I'm glad he's kind of pointed that out. Dobu, I don't know what Dobu expects to do dressed up as the shooter, unless it's to get the shooter's attention. The problem is, I think Dobu believes that the shooter's doing it for attention, and if the shooter sees somebody dressed just like him, he'll kind of get annoyed and approach, and that's when Dobu will try to get the gun back from him, which is a terrible idea and could backfire in a lot of ways. Also, not just backfire in the fact that Tanaka could shoot him, but backfire in the way that these other vigilante justice people who are trying to, punish Dobu could hurt him as well. And if people catch you, they're going to think that you're the shooter. If you take off your mask and it's confirmed that it's you, they're going to think you were the person in the cabaret when it wasn't. Lots of things being set up that go bad. So, anyway, they're rehearsing for this drama. They have Baba-sama. And, we hear this line, hey, you've been recently making a lot of money, haven't you? You've been named the #1 breakout entertainer. And he's like, oh, really? Here's the thing. With Rui being in a relationship with Baba, Baba seems pretty innocent. He seems like that he doesn't, he's an innocent guy. He's not really manipulative. He doesn't have a lot of ambitions. He's just doing what he enjoys, and he just happens to be getting popularity and making money for it. Rui is all about making herself a name for herself and making money. So Rui very well could be dating Baba for money because she knows he could be an investor. Now, how that will change when Amai gets his money, here's the thing. I don't think Rui follows Amai on social media, so I don't think she has any clue that he's won the lottery yet, right? I don't think she's followed that post because I think she just views him as a fan. She doesn't really care. So I don't think she knows that he's won the lottery yet. So instead, she's hitting on Baba because he has money, because he's popular. So she could be like, oh, hey, are you Jay-Z? I'm Beyonce. Let's get together and be a power couple, right? She could be looking at them as being a power couple, and that helping to jettison her into stardom. And the manager would be all about that because they'd be like, money, please. So I'm torn. Do I think that Rui actually likes Baba? I don't. I think it's an act because she acts so cutesy around him, and then we've seen her with the manager act like a stone cold badass. I think it's an act, right? I think she's just using him, and he doesn't know. So, because then even the koala, the manager is like, oh, well, there are guys who are loved despite being stupid, which is such a backhanded compliment. And Baba's like, well, I'm not really stupid. And he's like, oh, I didn't mean that. It's a fine thing. They think he's an idiot. They all think he's an idiot and that he's easily manipulated. And the unfortunate thing is that everybody is using Baba except Shibagaki. Shibagaki was his friend who just wanted to do comedy with him and is being disgruntled by the fact that Baba's getting all this success when Shibagaki's like, but what about our comedy where we got started at? What about our friendship? And Baba's got caught up in all of this, and it's slowly tearing him from Shibagaki, which is really sad, right? Which is really sad. So I also like the subtle little detail where the manager goes from calling him Baba-kun to Baba-chan. It's a little subtle detail, but yeah. And he's like, oh, you've got good breeding, as whatever her face would say. You've got good genes, Baba. So he says, Shibagaki's always calling me a worthless piece of junk. Now, the thing is, Shibagaki calls him that, but he is still his friend. And it's like one of those things where, I think it's one of those things where when you're friends with somebody and they give you a hard time, it's not because they don't like you, it's just because that's your friendship. But maybe Shibagaki doesn't realize that him and Baba are on different wavelengths. And the manager tells him to cut ties with him. He's like, the weak need to be weeded out and your partner's just being a sore loser. He's like, so I'd like you to appear in a special end of the year program. We're recording next Friday and want you to be in it. And he's like, oh, well, that's round 3 of the N1, so I could do it afterwards. He's like, and at first the manager's like, well, no. And then Baba says, I spent a year working towards it. Which, granted, that's a pretty good excuse. If you're like, I've been on it for a year, I can't quit now. So he says, we'll just make some adjustments then. I've got high hopes for you. So then Rui comes in, looking as adorable as she can be, looking as sweet as a little piece of pie. And she's like, I haven't seen you at all recently. And he's like, I don't have enough time to sleep. And she's like, I told you didn't need to become this successful. Now, I find that interesting because that does lead me to think that maybe, maybe she isn't just after him for his money and his power and status. Maybe she did like him. Maybe she's like, you didn't have to get that successful. But she does make the comment that she's super ambitious, and what she liked about him was that he wasn't ambitious, which to me is like, girl could get jealous. I think girl might have some insecurities buried under the surface, where if she's like, oh, I don't want you to be more successful than me, I've got to be the one to make a name for myself. I feel like maybe she has some insecurity deep within of him getting more popular than her, and then she might be afraid that he'll get to a point where he thinks he doesn't need her. Now, do I think he'll get to that point? No, but that's just her own insecurity. But she says that their concert is going on sale on Christmas, and it's not even Halloween yet. So Amai is planning to keep that lottery ticket for like 3 more months. No, don't do that, Amai. She said, we're doing a concert at a 2,000 person venue that day. And he's like, I'm so happy for you. You always said you wanted to climb higher, Rui-chan. And if that goes well, they said they'd get us to the Budokan. Okay, and he's like, I'm rooting for you. She's like, you don't have to work so hard. I like that you're the opposite of my excessive ambition, Baba-san. So, okay, maybe they were in a relationship before all of this, and she just liked him because he was, just a nice guy who didn't have all this ambition. She's like, I want to be the breadwinner. Well, can I be the breadwinner? Maybe that's it. I don't know. But money changes people, so I don't know. I don't know where that's going with them. But I do think it's cute right now. He's like, I'm still a man. It's true that I lack ambition, though. And she's like, well, then what's the problem? And she tells him to come here. It's super cute. Honestly, though, I love their height difference. I don't care what anybody says. I really like really, really tall people. And so the fact that he's like Groot compared to her Rocket I'm actually all about this dynamic. I'm like, I like the height difference. It's super cute. And he's like, oh, are you sure you don't think of me as a pet? And she's like, I don't want a pet with a horse face. That's cute. I like that. I want to believe that she genuinely likes him. I want to believe that she genuinely likes him as a person, but I don't know. I can't trust anybody in this series. No one is to be trusted. No one is to be trusted, right? You can't trust anybody. And I've spent an hour talking about this episode. So it ends with the manager being like, now that you're becoming successful, I'm sure you understand Rui's needed. And she's like, let me know if your schedule opens up and I'll match yours. And then Shiba is like, when can we practice? Round 3 is next week. And he's like, what should I do? And he has all these things lined up. Yep. Which I feel bad that they're all... Their schedules are on different paths. And then we see Shiba walking home, and he stops and looks over and sees the happy sale. And it's literally Baba selling... It basically is Baba being a sellout. But Baba doesn't realize he's being a sellout. He's not even cognizant that he's selling out, but that's how Shiba sees him being it. And it is what it is. I'm so fascinated. This episode gave me anxiety. This episode was tense. And it wasn't even tense except for the gunfight. It wasn't even a gunfight. It just... Yep. Oh, and things are heating up in this series, and I'm not sure how to feel about it, but okay. I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below, but I guess next week we'll find out where this is going with all of these characters. I'm excited to see what goes down, but in any case, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more of Odd Taxi. Bye!